everybody, Z Garcia here. Welcome back to the Dice Tower. Today I'm doing a rapid fire roundup, and I've got here 11 games I'm quickly going to be going over. These are either games that other folks have reviewed on the channel, and I wanted to give you my quick thoughts, or games that I don't think I need to review the entire thing in its own video, so I wrapped it up in here. So let's go ahead and jump into it without any further to-do. I'm going to start with the highest rated one, work my way towards the real dreck. And I'm going to start at a game that gets an 8 from me, and this is Tucano, a very tiny little card game with a quick, simple drafting feel to it. Kind of reminds me of Sushi Go. You are grabbing cards from the center. You are making, groups. You're playing groups in front of you or collecting specific things. There's some you want to avoid. It has this straightforward drafting feel in which you are taking a pile and then replenishing the other ones. And I really enjoy that feel of the game. Many other games have done this kind of drafting before, where some things sort of build up, and eventually you go, yeah, that's worth taking, even if there's some bad cards in there. There's so much other stuff that it's worth grabbing the entire stack. I like that feel. I think it works well for this game, and it is a different enough kind of drafting from straightforward, like take one and pass, that I think it lives, it can live in the same collection as something like Sushi Go. Very clean, very straightforward. I enjoyed it a lot. It's cute. All right, next up, Rebuilding Seattle, which is the exact opposite of something like Tucano. Big game, economic game, lots going on. I gave this one a 7. The game is very much not my style, okay? I don't tend to enjoy economic games, but I thought this one came together well. It's got a lot of moving parts, but I enjoy mechanically what's going on. I thought the economy getting better and better and better for you has a nice arc. It's not the kind of game that I personally felt holds you down and punches you and makes you take out a loan, and then by the end of the game you feel like you need to pay off this loan or someone's going to be knocking on your door asking you for money. It lets you get better. It lets you build up. There's a lot of clever things you can do in the game. There's some one-time only abilities on the player boards that are interesting, and you can choose when you do that stuff. There's some polyomino type stuff at play. I thought the game graphically could have been a little more exciting, but I enjoyed what was going on in it. And again, if you are looking for an economic style game, this is, I think, a really solid one that's going to bridge those gaps between folks that don't want to play them, i.e. me, but would be good with a Euro style game, and folks that want the crunchy, want something that you can sink your teeth into and is going to give you that replayability. So, very fun game. Next up, I've got Vampire Queen. I also gave this one a 7. This is a card shedding game in which you're trying to empty your hand of cards. And it's got that sort of, idea in which you have to play a set bigger than the other players. So, if I play 2 of a kind, I play 2 whatevers, 2 7s, then the next player could play 2 8s, 2 12s, what have you, trying to empty out what you're holding. There's also then a really weird twist in it in which there's 1 or possibly 2 of these Vampire Hunter cards that the players have in their hand, and you know who has it because it's double-sided. And you can play this card, and everybody has to, instead of trying to win that hand, they need to play low. They want to slip under that character, and whoever plays the highest one, and everybody has to play when you lead a Vampire Hunter, everybody follows a single card, and if you play the highest, you unfortunately couldn't hide from the Vampire Hunter. You end up picking up all these cards and the Vampire Hunter, and that card's going to penalize you at the end of the game if you're still holding it. You cannot win it and then immediately lead the Vampire Hunter again. You have to play something else. You have to lead a normal set. It's a clever twist. It means that you want to get rid of your low cards because you're going to be stuck with them when somebody goes out. But you want to hold on to maybe one of those because you want to slide in under that Vampire Hunter who's looking for you. I really like this one. It's very clever. Nice production. It's a remake of an older Kramer, Wolfgang Kramer game, but it's a nice one. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. And if I'm looking again for a card shedding game, This is one of the simpler ones that I would go for that doesn't get weird with its card combos. Straight, full house, you can discard this, you can bomb the thing, you know, it's very clean. Next up, let's talk about Trailblazers. I give Trailblazers a 6, which is a pretty low score compared to what the fellas gave it in the video they did for it. I thought this was a little more headachy than they said, and this is Mike and Chris are the ones who reviewed Trailblazers in its own video review. I like the look of it. I like the production quite a bit, but I found it to be, yeah, just a little bit of like a, you know, Yeti in my spaghetti kind of thing. It's just a mess of lines and colors and trails, and the whole thing, you never feel like for everything you make progress on, you feel like you're letting something else down. And I had a hard time with that. I had a hard time making plans come together for me in this one. It felt very defeating in a way. The closer I got to some things, the farther I was getting away from others. I've come to realize I'm not as big a fan of games which give you 8 goals or what have you. I'm making up a number. And you know you're only going to be able to achieve 2 of those things, maybe. And so it just feels like you're letting, you know, you're doing worse, like you're letting yourself down more than you are actually achieving. Not a great feeling for me. You know, and this game felt like it reiterated that style of play. I still would play it. I would say, especially the portable pack, the version that you get in a little bag and a little sort of zip-up container with a carabiner. That one's neat, and, you know, you can play that in just about anywhere you have a large enough surface. But I didn't love it. I liked it fine. A 6 is not an elbow drop. I liked it all right, but there's some issues I had with it. All right. Next up, let's talk about Dobro, and this one also gets a 6 from me. This is an Uno-esque kind of card game. Also, playing your hand out, kind of like Vampire Queen. That one's cleaner than this. But in this one, whenever you play, you can follow whatever was played last. Say my opponent played a 5, I can play another 5, and I double what the running total is of the table, like a 10. You can also play 2 cards of the same number. The next player then can play 2 8s, and that's a 16, and so on. If the next player can also play exactly a 16, they double that up to 32. It gets a little weird along the way. Some of the rules are a little tricky to internalize. When you double what the table's total is, when you merely replace the total. If I play a 5 and you played a 5, do you then play a 10 and that's a 20 or just a 10? What's the total of the table now? So it's a little weird, and I think it suffers from that slightly in comparison to something like an Uno or whatever. But it's a slightly better game also than I keep saying Uno, but any of those kinds of games. It's attractive. It looks good. The card quality is excellent. These are, I think they're plastic cards. They really hold up super well. And it's vibrant, and it's one that, again, you can sort of pull out of your pocket, play just about anywhere. It's going to give you that quick blast of fun, and then you're done with it. Does not outstay its welcome. You can adjust how many rounds you play, you know. So I enjoyed it. I think it's a quirky little game. And while it's certainly not one for everybody, if you enjoy those kinds of card-shedding games and you're not someone who, as soon as someone says Uno, you go, ugh, no, get out, then this is maybe one you want to check out. All right, next up, a trick-taking card game called Bug Council of Backyardia. This one I'm giving a 6 to as well. I like the trick-taking part of this game. I think that's very good. But then there's this Mancala part in which whoever wins the trick takes takes the trick, but whoever lost, i.e. played the absolute lowest card, plays Mancala on this board in which you change the strength of the suits. Once you're done playing the hand, you have 11 cards, but you only play 10. The one you're holding is also worth strength based on how many cubes ended up being on the suit you're holding. That's very chaotic. It's very uncontrollable. You have no idea. And it could change literally the last play right before the round is over. You could be going into that one with a card you're holding in red, whatever, and all the cubes are on red, and the last player picks up all the cubes on red and redistributes them. And it's just a kick to the teeth. I really didn't like that part because it's so wildly swingy. You can just, that part doesn't quite work. The rest of it is fun. The part where you have to account for that last card you're holding doesn't do it. So I'm giving this one a bit of a mixed rating here because I enjoy the trajectory, and then at the end of the hand, it always feels like, well, that's a crapshoot, you know. And I didn't enjoy that Mancala part of the game as much, especially, again, towards the end of a hand. But it's clever, it's weird, and it certainly stands out from other trick-taking games. That thing is not hard to understand. It makes sense quickly. And that's another thing it gets props for, because a lot of trick-taking games go really esoteric in order to be new. This one manages to be different and new without being impenetrable. So that's why it gets that 6. All right, next up, a cooperative game called Cooperation, I think. This one gets a 5 out of 10. It is basically like the game, the one in which you're playing numbered cards trying to win. You're building a pyramid, but it is, and on your turn you play a number to this pyramid. You have to, the numbers, every line of the pyramid has to be sequential, and a number above 2 other numbers has to be in between that. So if I have the 12 and the 17, over here has to be higher than 17, and then above the 12 and the 17 could be, say, a 15. That's all cool and sort of can be clever, but the game is super punishing because your hand size is very small. It's very hard to draw cards in the game. There's a bunch of math in it in which if you want to play a card from this little set-aside display, you need to discard 2 from your hand, already very punishing. I said your hand is small. And the difference or the sum of these cards has to be the one you want to steal. The cards go up to 50, mind you, okay? And then you could change that math by discarding further cards from your hand. It just sort of, it starts great and then devolves into something pretty punishing. Very difficult to win this game. So it's fun to play. It's not fun to attempt to win, if that makes sense. So while I want to like it, while I respect some of the ideas in it, it is just not quite there for me. It's more deflating than fun. And there's a couple of rules clarity issues as well thrown on top of that, which mean that, it's just a hard one to get to the table. Not one that I would pull off the shelf before I pull off, say, even the game or a plethora of other games that have cards and numbers. Okay? So there we go. Next up, also at a score of 5 points, Guns or Treasure. This one is incredibly short and incredibly lucky as well. You are building ships in front of you that are composed of a combination of guns and treasure, or maybe just a lot of one and none of the other. And then once you do this card draft and building your ships, you pick a player, you pick a ship in front of them, and you go, okay, that one, I'm attacking that one with this one. You reveal and see what happens. Once you do that, once you've gone around the table once, you could continue doing that if you have some more ships, or you can just say, okay, I'm just banking everything I've got in front of me. And that's it. That's the game. There's just not a lot there. It's quick. I'll give it that. You can play in 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, it's unbelievably fast. But the gameplay is satisfactory for about that amount of time. And at that point, I'll just play something that's a little bit longer, that I'll play for 20 minutes, and the return fun is multiplied. This one didn't seem worthwhile. It didn't seem, well, it works, and it makes sense for what it does, and it's very, easy to understand and play. There's just no reason to play when I can play something else for a few more minutes and have so much more fun than this. It's sort of, once it's over, everybody goes, and that's the game. So, not one I recommend. Next up, a solitaire game called Sensor Ghosts, which I'm giving a 4 out of 10 to. This is from a company that's made a couple of other solitaire games, and I very much like the first one they came out with. I can't remember exactly what it's called now. I'll put it up on the screen. It's a great solo game. I think it's fantastic. And this was a follow-up to that, kind of thematically. But it is just a headache in a box. It has a bunch of memory. It has a bunch of rules. And then the manipulation of the game continues to get in your way. You just can't quite move things out of the way so you can get to some fun. You can set up this whole thing, try to understand how these asteroids move in space, make one move and die. Like I said, memory, there is simply too much happening for the return that might or might not work. It's not satisfactory. I just thought it was such a letdown after the first solo game was so clever and interesting and easy to understand. This has none of those things. It feels designed to counteract all of those points. The only one is that it kind of looks cool. I thought their first game looked really neat, the art style. This one is not as cool looking, but it kind of looks cool. Everything else is a letdown for me. Very disappointed by Sensor Ghosts, and certainly not one I would recommend to solo gamers looking for a small game. There are so many better games for that. Next up, Glom. I'm rating this one a 3. It's a word game with an annoying limitation. You have to make up sentences following their rules. I hated it. It's the kind of game that it looks like it would be designed to sort of push creativity with limitations. It just ends up being kind of annoying, a one-trick pony that runs out of steam real quick. Not one I want to revisit anytime soon. I did not like Glom. I would not recommend it. There are many word games you can play before this one. I think combining word games and party atmospheres is already kind of tricky. This one ain't doing it. So Glom gets a big thumbs down from me and gets a 3. And then the final game for today is Squid Game, which gets a 2 out of 10. This is trash. This is an absolute mess. They tried to put the different Squid Game challenges that the people go through in the Netflix TV show in the box, but they're all basically the same. Push your luck, reveal a card, and see if you randomly chose the right number or not. The only reason it doesn't get a 1 is because I could see myself maybe picking one of these 6 things they want you to play and playing that one for 5 minutes. Maybe. Okay? There's a couple that are halfway decent. But the game, as written in the rules, is playing through all 6 of these challenges. And there's more time reading the stupid rules for each challenge than there is actually playing these things. They're all incredibly random and lucky. The production quality is trash for this box. Cardboard that it feels wet and awful. You can just blow on it and it'll fall apart. There's no game here. This is a cash grab for the TV show, and they wanted to strike while the iron was hot. But there is no good reason on this green earth that you should pursue this game and play it. There is nothing here. Go buy a deck of cards and Google how to, play with a deck of cards. You'll find many games that will be better than this. At the very least, you'll not find any that are worse. I can guarantee you that. You can play 52 pickup and it'll be on par with this one. So there you go. That's it for me, everybody. That is 11 games that I wanted to bring to you. My thoughts on. Let me know in the comments below if you've played any of these, if you have any thoughts on them. But that's going to do it. Thanks very much. My name is Z Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.